Hey everyone, recently on the podcast I had Chris from the BugOutBagGuide.com on, and we talked about his book, The Everyday Carry Guide. And in that book he mentioned this little Wartech knife, really low cost. I think it's like $10 on eBay, Wartech tactical folding knife. And I decided I'm going to get one of those and see how it is, because I love stuff like this. It's a pretty cool knife for, you got to remember, for the price. It's not going to be, one of the better, higher quality knives, but I tested this out and actually found that for the price, it's actually a pretty cool knife. The outside casing is, I believe, made out of some kind of steel, possibly plastic, not sure, but it feels pretty sturdy for a $10 knife. The opening, it opens really well. The spring is pretty good, the spring assisted opening, and it stays pretty tight. What I did with this was ran it through some tests, and I tried to break it. I ran for about 45 minutes. I whittled some wood, I did some batoning, some feathering, kind of used it like I would a fixed blade knife. Used it for a lot more than I would for a folding knife, and it actually held up pretty well. One thing with the seatbelt cutter here, I think that's kind of a gimmick on knives, but it's actually, for cutting paracord, stuff like that, it's actually pretty good, and that's what I use on these knives. I also use the back end, the glass breaker here, to bust a couple rocks and see how well it worked and see what kind of damage it did, because on this piece in here feels like plastic to me, so I don't know how long that is going to stand up. But it actually did pretty well with a couple of things I did to it. How long will that last? Who knows? But for $10, really not a bad knife. I also tested how sharp it was, and it feels pretty sharp coming straight out of the box. I tested how sharp it was just on the resistance on a piece of paper, and it did pretty well. And then I tested it again after I used it, and you could tell the difference. There was a difference in the sharpness. And then I went ahead and sharpened it, and then tested it again. It wasn't quite as sharp as out of the box, but I didn't put a lot of effort into it. But it was still pretty sharp. So for a $10 knife, and it's also got the little flashlight on here, which is, it could come in handy. It's not a whole lot, but if you needed it for something and that's all you had, again, one is none, two is one is none. But a pretty cool light. And it doesn't feel, it doesn't, all this little stuff all over in the back, the belt strap right here, or belt clip, doesn't feel too bad in your hand when you're holding it. It actually fits pretty well in there. So, all in all, for a $10 knife, this is a pretty cool knife. I'm pretty impressed with it. It's something that I can just keep in the center console of my truck and forget about it, basically. And it's there if something happens and I need it. It's not my everyday carry, personal knife, but that's because I have my knife that I like. But in a pinch or starting out an everyday carry kit, this would be a great thing to have, and then just kind of work your way up. But that's it. If you haven't checked out Chris's book, The Everyday Carry Guide, I'll leave a link below where you can get these on eBay for like $10, I think. Pick up a couple. They're great if you're just teaching the kids or whatever. I mean, great to have just in case. They're not the super flimsy crap knife. One other thing before we get out of here too, it says 1065 surgical steel. That's basically a marketing thing. There is no such thing as 1065 surgical steel. Anytime they put surgical steel on there, makes me a little bit leery, because it kind of means cheap. But the 1065, the 65 is 0.65 carbon, which isn't bad. I mean, this knife is going to rust. It's not stainless steel, but any of the better knives, I've got a Rat 5. It's 1095 carbon steel. But any of the knives that are made out of carbon are just going to rust. You just got to take care of them. But they hold an edge a little bit better than stainless steel do, and they're a little bit more durable. So with that, like I said, you can get these on eBay or wherever for $10. Not a bad gift idea, especially maybe for Christmas, something like that. But pretty cool little knife. Hey everyone, recently on the podcast I had Chris from the bugoutbagguide.com on, and we talked about his book, The Everyday Carry Guide. And in that book he mentioned this little Wartech knife, really low cost. I think it's like $10 on eBay.